What's going on, guys? So as you can see, I'm out here at the shop. We got the boats out of storage. We're getting everything ready for camp here this upcoming season. We cannot wait. I've been organizing tackle this past week, and I thought it'd be a great time to jump on and talk to you guys about some of my favorite baits for springtime walleye fishing, specifically around the spawn, pre, during, post-spawn walleye, cooler water temperatures. Sometimes they're going to be a little bit more lethargic. Sometimes they're going to be a little bit tougher to catch. So this video is something that I wanted to do as far as some of my techniques for approaching springtime walleye fishing. So a lot of the stuff that I'm going to lead off with is going to be jig and plastic based, looking for some of the more aggressive fish, the fish that are ready to feed up after spawning, get that quick aggressive bite. A lot of times those are your bigger fish as well. So most of the time I am leading off with a underspin. So this is a 1/4 ounce jig head, little willow leaf blade on the bottom of it. I really like these willow leaf blades. It seems to take a little less speed to get the blade spinning. They put off a good amount of flash. And I'm going to pair that with a slightly smaller paddle tail. So this is an eye candy paddle tail. They're super stretchy, super durable. I think this is a 3-inch paddle tail. But this is something that I'm going to cast around structure. I'm going to cast it along flats. I'm going to be kind of pitching it all over the place, slow rolling it just enough to get that blade spinning, that tail kicking, and kind of scanning around, basically trying to find an aggressive fish. So this is the first thing that I always lead off with springtime walleye fishing. If I'm not getting the bites that I'm expecting, I will go with a slightly more subtle presentation, bigger paddle tail, 4.5 inch, just on a standalone jig head. So this is a 1/4 ounce VMC Moon Eye with a tickle tail on it. You know, like I said, slightly bigger plastic, give it a bigger profile. You won't have quite as much flash or vibration. And I'm going to fish this the exact same way that I'm going to fish an underspin. I'm going to cast it around, slow rolling it just enough to get that tail kicking, hopping it off a cover, bumping it into rocks, trying to get that big reaction bite out of the more aggressive fish. So obviously, like I said, we're leading off with slightly more aggressive tactics, trying to see what kind of mood these fish are in and trying to get the bigger bites out of them off the get-go. So this would be another bait that I would consider in that category. This is one that I would probably fish more in the low light periods, early morning, evening, night fishing, but this is a suspending jerkbait. So this is something that a lot of bass fishermen are probably going to be familiar with, but specifically we're talking the suspending jerkbaits. So this is a Rapala Husky jerk. This is the HJ10. This is like my favorite size all around, and this is also my favorite color, gold with the black back. Obviously every body of water is going to be a little different. I like the OG silver with the black back, perch colors up at camp, but play around with your color choices, obviously. But the big thing with these is the fact that they suspend. So when you kill the bait, it is not going to float, it is not going to sink, it's going to stay exactly where you stopped. So that is something that during these colder water times can really be a game changer. Basically tormenting these fish while this thing is sitting dead still right in front of them, just hanging there. These early season walleye can't resist it. So how I'm going to fish this is going to be very similar again to how I would fish these paddle tails. I'm going to be fan casting it around. I'm going to be casting it into structure, along sand flats, along weed edges. And I'm going to fish it a little bit slower than you would traditionally fish a jerkbait. You know, you're not just ripping the rod, jerking it a bunch. I'm going to do more of like a slow pan, reeling up a little bit, and then I'm going to add a nice little pop at the end, get this to kick around a little bit, and then I'm going to kill it. And I'm going to let it pause for 5 to 10 seconds. The longer you can let it sit, any of the fish that were following it when you were doing your sweep and your pop, they're just going to be sitting there staring at it, and either they're going to eat it then or they're going to eat it on your next little sweep. So this is a great one for low light periods. One of my favorites for catching big walleye at night. So this is one that I always keep tied on. I keep this one on my cranking rod. This is a VMC bucktail. I really like the bucktail. Slightly smaller profile than some of their other hair jigs that VMC makes. And for some reason that bucktail seems to undulate in the water a little bit better. So this would be something that I would fish standalone. I'm going to be trying to cast that specifically at pods of fish or individual fish that I'm finding on live scope. But you can also kind of fan cast this around just like everything else. Like I said, fishing it standalone to start with. If I can't get them to bite on this, I'm going to tip it with a minnow. Add a little bit more bulk to it, but also scent and the realism of live bait can help a lot. So threading a live minnow on here, if things are really tough, is a good way to go. And that leads me to the next one, is the old OG jig and minnow. So obviously sometimes you got to go down to a live bait bite, and that's just what they want. It is what it is, especially in the colder water temps. Sometimes they're finicky, sometimes they're lethargic. Jig and minnow is going to be the answer. So this is just a simple 1/8 ounce VMC moon eye, threading a minnow onto it. Same thing, trying to get it in front of as many fish as you can. Hopefully trying to pinpoint fish off a live scope, but otherwise just kind of fan casting around structure, making bottom contact, trying to keep it in front of as many fish as you possibly can. So if you can't get them on a jig and minnow, I have one last little trick up my sleeve for super lethargic walleye, and it's this ugly thing here. So this is a Ned rig. It's been big in the smallmouth scene for a while now. Smallmouth absolutely love them, but walleye actually really, they'll crush them all the same. So this is kind of something that hasn't really hit the scene super huge in the walleye industry, but they absolutely love them. And like I said, it's a painfully slow technique to fish. But it does get bit a lot, and it is kind of my last resort. It's not my favorite way to fish, but it will catch fish. So this is something that I keep in my back pocket all the time. This will be tied on one of my finesse rods all spring. Basically, the gist of it is it's a little 3-inch stick worm on a mushroom head jig head. The Z-Man plastics are kind of my go-to for it. They're super stretchy like the eye candies, but if you can see on here, they are loaded with salt, so they actually float. So when you cast this thing out, it will sit basically exactly like this. And that tail will be just sitting up like this, kind of kicking around. And you're going to cast this around structure and flats and stuff like that, and you're just going to slowly reel it, just so that thing is just kind of dragging and bouncing along the bottom, and that tail's floating up and kind of hanging around. And it is a great way to catch springtime walleye. And like I said, it's not my favorite, but it works extremely well. So this is something that I would consider as my last resort, but it is great to have in the playbook. So if you guys haven't tried one of these, I would say go to your local tackle shop, get some of this stuff, have this in your back pocket for when you're really struggling to get bit. And it can make or break a day, really. So I like to have that progression. That's kind of how I will work through my baits for springtime fishing. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Hopefully you got some new ideas out of it. If you're coming up to camp this spring, hope to see you guys there. And maybe one of these techniques will work really well for you up there. So we're looking forward to being up there. Like I said, can't wait. We're counting down the days. I'm going to try to keep putting out some content for you guys as we're getting ready. But this was one that I really wanted to do as I was going through my tackle boxes, was get in and talk about some of the baits and things that I like doing for springtime fish. So stay tuned for more. I appreciate you guys checking in and following along. And hopefully, like I said, we'll see you up at camp this year. So see you guys.